seems to be the issue here. You're aware of Section 2024, Article J28, aren't you? Summertime, it's full underway, friends, but the excitement with the Edmonton Oilers does not stop Jeff Jackson. The Edmonton Oilers organization continues to pound out day after day good little things to talk about as summer is well underway. Bob Stauffer talking about the lull in action, but, well, don't worry about it. There's still plenty to talk about here in Oilers land, and I'm looking forward to doing that with you here this evening. This is Dolynny TV. Glad to have you aboard. What I will say before we get to too much Oilers news, I will encourage you to hit that subscribe button here on the channel this evening. Simply put, if we're still putting together a full show on July 9th, we've got a good summer ahead. By the way, Leon Draisaitl still hasn't signed an extension, and maybe Evan Bouchard might do something in that category too. So there's still plenty of stuff to get to. So stay aboard, stay tuned. It's going to be a fun summer. That said, we should probably get into item number one because there's actually, for the first time this week, there's actually a lot that I want to get into, right? Monday was kind of slower news days, kind of pushing the topics a bit, but I missed something last night. Well, of course I will, right? I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, trying to make ball, trying to eat supper, and trying to get a video out. Stuff will happen like that. The Oilers trade news. Well, this was a quote that I saw about, it would have been 19 hours ago. It would have been during Bob Stauffer's show. You see in here Frank Saravalli dropping out there that there is 100% a trade market for Cody Ceci. So before we get to the Oilers Nation article there, I just want to say, quite simply, this is something we have needed confirmation on because I think a lot of folks are divided on, do you trade Ceci? Do you not trade Ceci? Is there even a market for Ceci? Why would you trade Ceci, right? There's a whole bunch of questions when it comes to it, but that is where I want to encourage you to go check out the Oilers Nation article, kind of describing the situation, according to Frank Saravalli, as a break glass in case of emergency situation for the Oilers. Right now, we'll talk about it a little later on. There's a very simple fix for the Oilers to the situation they find themselves in with cap compliancy, all this, and whatever has to happen. Really, for the Oilers, it can happen quite simply with Evander Kane, but Cody Ceci, if you can find an upgrade or if you feel strong enough in the fact of Josh Brown and Troy Stetcher, and Philip Broberg is ready to take the role, I don't see why you don't. So I think there might be, like we said, late August, some movement on this front, but it's now, again, we keep ticking along, right? We're close to late August. Quite honestly, for an Oilers offseason, given where we have been the year previous, right, back in early May, we were out of the playoffs, I think, we are close to late August. It's July 9th. We've got 22 days left in the month. Don't tell boss man because guys got to get to work. But no, quite honestly, right? We're close. We got 31 days in August. You really have to get to 25 days. So you got less than 50 days to go until that definition late August. And with Cody Ceci, I think knowing that there's a trade market there is just going to keep this news cycling through our feeds for the next while, just because it's quite honestly the most topical thing you can possibly have here. So when we go to it, I want to also touch on what John Shannon touched on my way home today on the old Oilers Now with Bob Stauffer, talking about the GM search for the Oilers. Mark Hunter was mentioned, Mike Futa was mentioned. I know there are some other names mentioned. Again, I'm not too interested in the names. Quite honestly, at this point, with the body of work Jeff Jackson has put up in this short time, Section 2024, Article J28, me just making some fun of the joke, year number 2024, and obviously June 28th when Jeff Jackson started putting his stamp on this team. Well, it really comes down in John Shannon's eyes to how Jeff Jackson wants the GM role to be viewed within the Edmonton Oilers organization. And I say how because it is a definition, right? It is kind of what you're looking for in that GM to do organizational wise. And what John Shannon really feels is a player evaluator, and not like, a scout, not a development guy. No, a guy who is in charge of holding the value of the players and picks in the organization. Now that's reading between the lines a little bit and kind of extrapolating for myself, but you look at it here for the Oilers, if you've got Jeff Jackson who's not afraid to make trades, fire the coach, whatever he has to do, and he's been absolute aces with it throughout his tenure as president of hockey operations in Edmonton, or CEO of hockey operations, sorry, I forget that's a whole different title, CEO, then basically you've got a guy in Bill Scott who's gotten a lot of mentions here over the summer too, running the contracts and the cap. Really, Jeff Jackson is the guy in charge of everything. So the only thing you're really missing is a guy in the organization who is Jeff Jackson's first contact when a trade or when a free agent signing or when something comes to question, do we have this in the organization, whether we want to acquire it or whether we want to trade it out? Do we have this, and what's the value of what we have? What's the projections of what we have? That is what the Oilers general manager job very well could become in the very near future when the Oilers hire a GM. And I think one guy that, again, knowing his background, knowing where he's coming from in the London, Ontario realm of the Knights, well, Mark Hunter, again, I 100% think has to be the guy. And it just, I guess, comes down to, for Jeff Jackson, familiarity and fit on that one. And I think there's maybe 2 boxes checked there, hopefully. So, again, hoping for Mark Hunter is where I remain following the update from John Shannon today. So we move on to the next thing. What is the best move to do with Evander Kane? And again, this comes from John Shannon today. What I'm basing on is saying that the LTIR is the most likely and best scenario for the Oilers. You LTIR them, you get cap compliant early on. You work through the first month, 2, 3, whatever Evander Kane needs. If he needs to the end of the season, so be it. But you work through it and you get going, because what you can get done with that is a little bit more than maybe trading off some key roster players. Like, no kidding, right? Cody Ceci is a key player for the Oilers. He just helped you go to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Sure, he was a scratch at one point, but so were a lot of guys on this roster. Mind you, some of those guys aren't with us anymore, but you get where I'm going. It is a guy like Cody Ceci has logged some hard, heavy minutes for the Oilers over the past several years, and a guy that, hey, you're probably not looking to ship out of town because he's a bad guy or because he's useless to you. That's not the point. It's just there's more organizational depth now. There's better maybe use of that cap space, and that cap space can maybe accumulate more usage later on in the year when you look to upgrade truly on that top 4 right defense slot. So that's where we get to on the Cody Ceci front. But I want to touch on something right now as well that we really haven't seen much of so far this summer. And this is where I say this is owed, because we haven't seen it. A big congrats to Stu and Pix for solving the Oilers' net problems. And this one, again, coming from the conversations with Bob Stauffer on Oilers Now between him and, I believe, John Shannon. Again, it all blurs together once you start driving in the fields and everything and the sunshine and you're tired after the long days of work. But it really is a credit to those 2 guys, Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard, coming out of Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. Yeah, okay, would Stuart Skinner love to have that goal back that ultimately loses you the Stanley Cup, I guess you could say? Well, sure. So would every other goalie that's ever lost the Stanley Cup. Stuart Skinner's not the only goalie that's ever lost a Stanley Cup Final. And the fact that he fought through what he did early on in the playoffs, he came up in the biggest of moments in the final. And, oh, by the way, he had a pretty decent season after Chris Knoblauch arrived. So, albeit, it's a pretty positive news day for the Edmonton Oilers. Again, I will ask you, I'll flash that graphic one more time for you. This is what I want in the comments section tonight. I didn't touch on it, but what is truly the best course of action? What is the best answer with Evander Kane for this upcoming season? Because I really don't know if there is one in particular trade to free up that cap space and just kind of free yourself from maybe a question mark, right? I'm not saying Evander Kane's a question mark for what he gives you. I'm saying he's a question mark over the past 2 years health-wise that maybe you just don't want lingering in the organization, because you can solve that Evander Kane issue with the cap space plus solve maybe some other issues you get by trading him. So again, right, Cody Ceci, Evander Kane are going to continue to be our big headline target news updates over the course of the next several weeks. That seems weird. I was going to say months, and I'm accustomed to saying months, but no, we quite literally have 3 weeks left in June, if that, right? I guess realistically, yeah, 3 weeks. And then you got about 4 weeks left in August until you're really deep into the month, and we're talking about the Penticton Rookie Showcase. So buckle up, friends. We got a good summer ahead of us, and it's almost half over, so it seems. So stay tuned. Thanks for being aboard here on Dolynny TV. I'll catch you tomorrow. Probably tomorrow morning early. I got a little something planned for you. A little off the wall. We're going to have to go off the wall here during the summer. I think even Bob Stauffer's talking football in the last half hour of the show tonight. So, friends, I am up on out of here.